Listen Lanarkshire is a community radio station governed by the registered charity Getting Better Together Limited. Therefore, the radio station itself retains political neutrality, and any political views or comments aired as part of political discussion programming or otherwise are not the views of Listen Lanarkshire, nor of Getting Better Together Limited. The station has a set of key commitments found on the Ofcom website, and we adhere to all necessary Ofcom rules. For more information or inquiries, please contact us at radio@shotshealthyliving.com.
This program is a political discussion and commentary show. It contains robust political discussion and strong opinions. Politicians with a sensitive disposition should turn off now. The views expressed by contributors are their own and are given in a personal capacity as residents and individuals. They do not represent the views of any council, Listen Lanarkshire, or any associated organization. No council resources are used in the production of this program. Contributors who hold elected office are not speaking on behalf of their authority and are participating in a personal political capacity. This is a great show, beautiful show, big beautiful show, so big and so beautiful. These guys are great, not as great as me. Who will they offend this week?
I've been sitting here thinking, is this a prelude to a podcast? And we'll see it all once again on the next edition of the podcast.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to What's the Point, your number one political satirical podcast that covers all the crazy shenanigans that we love and adore and call North Lanarkshire Council. I'm your host Greg Lennon, and as always I'm joined by my number one partner in procedural crime, none other than the man himself, Mr. Gerry Brennan. Gerry, how are you?
Very well, Greg, and as always it's an extraordinary pleasure to be here in your company here in the lovely surroundings of Shots.
Well, Gerry, it is a hunter's moon out there tonight, so we can be guaranteed that Mark Griffin's out campaigning this evening.
I looked at it as I was driving up the M8 and I swear I could see the image of Mark Griffin in that hunter's moon.
In the hunter's moon. Well, you know he's out there chatting doors tonight and interrupting people's episodes of EastEnders.
He'll be eating their hunter's
and
chicken,
no doubt
and he'll be
scaring the wains along with his wee associate Frank McNally. My name's Frank McNally.
Well, he might be doing some busy work looking into the spending of his colleagues in Labour Party
and how they gather their funds, Gerry. That might be interesting.
There's been some questionable spending on government credit cards by members of the Labour Party. I just saw a clip before I came out, and it was a picture of the owner of the Peace Box that Frank carries about for his gaffer, Mr. Douglas Alexander.
Well, I feel this is like a Sky News breaking news moment.
Indeed,
here,
I'm
Gerry.
going to have a wee dig around this.
You keep reading and I'll keep talking. But anyway, Gerry, this week alone was the dreaded budget setting process in North Lanarkshire Council, and my goodness, there is loads to digest. Just like a Coatbridge North councillor getting the opportunity to use the parliamentary credit card at the local Indian, there is loads to digest on the menu this evening. Now, as I say, we have had all sorts of madness being exposed at this week's full council.
Complete lies. Were you even in the room, or were you too busy eating your jelly babies?
And my goodness, I was actually a wee bit lost there when you were talking, because I was too busy eating my jelly babies there, Gerry.
Have you got any?
There is a number of jelly baby packets in the studio tonight, Gerry.
Other sweeties.
So we can get stuck in to jelly babies face shots, Gerry. I don't know about you, but I do like a jelly baby.
Hi. At last. I've been sitting over here biting my tongue because this place is just a circus today. This is all theatrics, this is nonsense, all of it. And there's a lot of people in here that should be ashamed of themselves.
I love a jelly
I
baby.
like a jelly baby, Gerry. Now let's try and make sure that we're making noises on the radio. Anyway, the point being is we had some ludicrous statements at this full council. One of the biggest ludicrous statements for me was the SNP was setting out its budget proposals to save the Aquatec. Now, I'm going to come in to digest everything that kind of happened in there, but where would you like to start? And one of the most bizarre budget setting processes I think I've seen in my 9 years of being an elected member in North Lanarkshire.
Before I close, Provost, I want to reflect briefly on how we make decisions in this chamber. The SNP won the most seats in the council in 2022. We lost the administration, not because voters changed their minds, but because political allegiances inside this chamber changed after the election. It should always be remembered that with the exception of 2 councillors in this chamber, we were all elected because we represented a party mandate.
It was strange to say the least, and the way that the meeting itself transpired threw up all sorts of unexpected little gems. And myself and my colleague, Mr. David Crichton, put forward an amendment. I suppose one of the things that I tried to get across, I actually thought I was going to get back in to speak.
It was a schoolboy
error, because there was so many nice things that I wanted to say who's the convener of education? What's his name? Michael.
McPake?
No.
McBride.
Mr. McBride. Mr. McBride had made some comments about me, and I'd written them all and then you stole my thunder because obviously we're living rent free.
Well, because I'm rent free in my ward colleague's head.
We're living
Councillor
rent free.
McPake says I was supporting the Labour budget, although I never says I was supporting the Labour budget.
Greg Lennon supports the Labour budget. Hallelujah, thank God for that. But in doing so, he wants to support the £10 million going elsewhere, cutting stuff from his own ward, our ward.
That was hilarious.
Indeed, and I can't. But you know, I wish I'd brought the wee notes that I'd made, because I had wee answers for them all. But
I'm sure your memory will be rekindled as we go through.
I'm sure it will. But the fundamental point that I wanted to make was that, and I've mentioned this before, but it's not. It's a point that has to be reiterated, right? Every single year since the formation of North Lanarkshire Council, it's been a Labour budget that's gone through.
Oh, right? Let me interrupt you, Councillor Michael.
You've been warned about this.
Councillor Michael McPake highlighted to you, buddy, along with the SNP leader. Need he remind you?
Gerry Brennan spoke about, and I'll relate to Tracy as well, about 30 years of Labour administration budgets. Yes, that's right. But you've got to remember, guys, you did have your chance. Tracy, do you want me to tell you how you're in the situation you're in? Do you want me to remind you of it?
And why? You're no longer in the SNP group.
That's for later on in the show. But the fact remains that every year since the conception of North Lanarkshire Council, after the restructuring in 1996, it's been a Labour budget that's gone through.
Yes.
Right? And the reason that it's a Labour budget that goes through is because they have more councillors. They are supported by
paid opposition.
And that's why I think we need to come back to Tracy's point, a more collaborative approach, which is what we had put forward earlier this year that was rejected by the administration and the changes to the standing orders.
Paid opposition. They are supported by some independents as well. So in terms of the numbers, they exceed more than 39 to get a majority. So as long as you hit that magic number of 39, their budget goes through, right? So, full in the knowledge that I'm an independent councillor, as you are, Greg.
You wouldn't have guessed that, Gerry.
Right. If I present a full budget motion to the council, what's the chances of that going through?
Hee-haw.
None.
Hee-haw.
Right. The SNP have 24 councillors, selected councillors, right? So 24 against 40 odd that's remaining. Is an SNP budget going to go through?
Absolutely not. It's a parallel universe.
Yeah.
About how we should all work together, and oh yes we should, but how many times in this administration have we went cap in hand at the start of the budget process and said, come and work with us, come and work with us? It's absolutely...
Bring some clarity to it. I have always put out the hand.
So what you've got to try to do, if it's at all possible, is to make amendments to the most likely budget motion that's going to go through, which would be
the Labour budget.
And David and I at least cottoned on to that, and we made a proposal to save the Aquatec.
I was glad I came up with that suggestion.
We made a proposal to save the Aquatec. An appendix to the Labour budget motion had given a list of services that they wish to improve.
We need to be clear, within this list there was a £10 million additionality that the council's received, and it was able to spend how it wished.
Yes, right? £10 million had been allocated to spend on various projects to improve part of the active and creative communities.
So Labour's proposals were that we're going to build new football facilities.
Well, they're going to resurface.
We're going to resurface. We're going to invest in pavilions, and we're going to do these different things.
All the kind of things that they've no done.
Before you move on, but what was the SNP's proposal on how to spend that 10 million? Surely, given the fact that Claire Adamson has been out there publicly about the Aquatec, given the fact that Councillor Thomas and Councillor David Robb were out there shouting for the rooftops as well about the Aquatec and saving the Aquatec, I think it kind of finishes there, didn't it? It was only 3 of them. But surely in their budget proposal, somewhere within that £10 million was an allocation to the Aquatec to get that reopened.
Greg, it is I'm very sad to say that no, it wasn't.
There's room in this budget. There's room in this budget for the Aquatec. It's specifically mentioned. It's in here, right? The question is, do you want the Aquatec saved with a 4% increase? Is it 5%? Beg your pardon, 5% increase in the council tax, or with a 7%? That's literally the question.
Wow. What was included in the SNP budget motion was pretty much, I'm waiting on it coming up. I wanted to read it, verbatim, actually. But what was put forward, let me just see if there we go, the final SNP motion going through. It will only take a second to come up. But number 15 in that was the following. Right, so this is in stark contrast to what David and I have proposed. So we've proposed that £10 million is used to get the Aquatec open, right? Get it open, get the money spent to bring it up to speed, right? And then we can look at other funding streams that are going to potentially reopen the pool and look at what capital investment can go in using money possibly from the capital budget.
I'm with you, fella. Okay. I'm with you.
So we've got the money. It's been identified. It's gone through the proper channels. The monitoring officer, the finance officer for the council say, yes, it's competent, it meets all the criteria, it's affordable, it's costed, and for once in our lifetime, the provost allowed it to go through. He allowed it to go through.
I'm sure there was an ulterior motive there, but anyway, I'll know about that cynical.
Had the Labour budget motion gone through with our amendment on it, that £10 million would be absolutely allocated to the Aquatec, right?
Yeah.
Now, some members of the SNP group, I don't want to mention them by name, right? But some members of the SNP group spoke about the SNP motion, and I'm sure this one particular councillor said, who mentioned the jelly babies, and that's why the jelly babies are here tonight. But she had said something along the lines of, if you want to save on if you want to save the Aquatec, only the SNP budget motion can save it, right?
Yes.
So, folks,
so are we going to correct the record here?
We're going to correct the record because it's important that we do
I
that
think
because I think the public demand it, right?
Yeah.
So here goes, Greg. We also, this is the SNP budget motion, point 15 of it for folks at home. We also acknowledge that estimated cost to fully reinstate the Aquatec of between 35 and 40 million. That's to reinstate the entirety of the complex with the pool.
Just before we move on, where is that price derived from? Where is it?
Officers.
So it's an officer sitting in a desktop exercise. That's not an
officers.
open market.
So we in our other lives, we're not private citizens here having a chat about politics, but in our other lives, we've asked questions around that, and the officers were kind enough to share that that information was the work of officers of the council who have years of experience in.
Who have come up with a number.
And they've come up with a number.
A figure.
Of around 40 million.
Of around 40 million pounds.
Around 40 million.
To bring back a pool and a gym.
Of around 40 million.
John Smith was how much?
6 million.
Time capsule was how much?
Oh no, I can't remember exactly.
6 million. Right, let's just say.
Anyway,
let's just say between 1 and 6 million, right?
So let's put the record straight, right? This apparently is the aspect of the SNP motion.
Yes.
That's going to bring the Aquatec.
It's a serious motion.
It's going to bring the Aquatec. It's going to save the Aquatec and bring it back to life.
Very competent.
Here it is.
Professional.
We also acknowledge, Greg, that estimated cost to fully reinstate the Aquatec of between 35 and 40 million. We instruct officers to clarify the breakdown of this cost estimate and provide an assessment of the minimum funding required to reinstate the dry side provision in place prior to the most recent closure.
So what's the dry side?
Just
the gym?
Just gyms, other rooms that are used, because NHS use it for there's
so
various.
It's not a pool. It's just
dry side.
That area where the gym is.
Dry side is as it's stated dry, and the wet side is obviously the pool. So
this is what our budget seeks to do in relation to the Aquatec, and we look forward to seeing this information presented when the capital budget is set next month.
Nothing about the wet side, all about the dry.
Right.
Nothing about funds, nothing about reopening, nothing about a date for reopening. Right. Similar to the approach taken to fund the reopening of John Smith Pool, we also instruct officers to identify alternative funding within the current capital programme for agreement at policy and strategy in March.
So no decision at that budget, no allocation of funds to reopen that facility.
None.
Claire Adamson, Davy Robb and Thomas shouting for the rooftops.
None.
And then Councillor Janice Toner, granted you didn't want to say her name, but I will and I'll post the video, highlighted the fact that if you wanted a 5% budget to reopen the Aquatec
and
then
save the
you have
Aquatec,
to vote for the SNP budget. Yet there was no mention of any funds or any reopening date or anything like that in there.
Sadly, there wasn't, Greg.
Oh, that's very disingenuous.
Now, so I'm a very charitable person, right?
I always say that.
I always have been.
That.
And what the good people at home listening to this, and those who will be watching it on whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
There is other podcasts.
There are many other platforms, YouTube as well, to watch this wonderful.
Remember to like and subscribe.
Yes. What people won't immediately understand about the budget setting process is that not every councillor is going to be involved in it.
No.
Right? So in a previous life when I was an SNP councillor, right, I managed to wangle my way onto the budget group within the SNP group, and guess how many of at that point in time there was about 34 35 SNP councillors. Guess how many are on the budget group?
8.
8. So there's only 8.
And it was the same when I was part of the SNP group, Gerry, and part of that budget group, although the interesting thing, and what doesn't seem to have changed much, is the fact that we continue to look in the face of it. prima facie, Gerry, prima facie. That we pursue.
Your Latin.
We pursue the agenda of one individual within that SNP group whose family seem to benefit with every proposal that they always go through in the budget setting process. But I mean, look, point an elbow, just point an elbow at it. That's it there. That's it.
So there's 8 hand-picked individuals
yes.
who, and when I was on the group, 3 of them are there. 1, 2, 3. So these 3 were in it. I don't know where this chap was.
I don't think he's
the huntersman. He's rarer than the huntersman.
He's rarer than Mark Griffin.
He's rarer than the huntersman. But yeah, so 8 individuals go away and they look at the savings pack that's produced by officers, the suite, the menu of all the savings that you can have, and ultimately they make the decisions. And once that's done, they bring them back to the group, to the group meeting, and it goes through, right? Because once it's decided by the key individuals, whether it's a leader,
that guy
or a
at the
business
back,
manager,
just the guy at the back,
or
just
Mr. Stubbs, or that, and the equivalent exists obviously in the Labour group and the Tory group too. But so only 8 people will have that, and the rest of them are just they're told
dogs.
They're told what to vote for. And do you know how we know that, Greg?
I think you're going to tell me, and I've got a sneaky suspicion it's again falling back to Councillor Toner, Gerry.
It's not going to fall back to Councillor Toner. This time it falls to one...
the illustrious leader.
The illustrious leader of the SNP, because what happened on Thursday was that David Crichton and I produced our amendment, right, to the Labour budget motion, because that's the only one that's going to go through, right? And we've set that out, so there's no point in us attaching it to the SNP one, because it's nothing.
Snowball's chance.
So basically what happens is the motion, Labour's motion, goes up against the SNP motion, and
tends to be the case,
and the SNP motion will fall.
SNP jump onto social media, big bad Labour, all the nonsense.
Effectively, what happened was that the main contest for budget motions this year was not the SNP motion,
because they were struck out first.
They were gone. So the first round knockout, boom. It was actually the Labour budget
and 2 wee independents
and me, and David's and me seconded it. That was it. And unfortunately for us, the Labour motion went through without the amendment to save the Aquatec. They held their line that they were going to invest smaller amounts.
The SNP, right? Because I remember the comments for Carragher as well in relation to this is a hijacked meeting. It's a hijacked meeting.
It is clear that today has been taken over by one subject, one facility, and it is important, that facility. Of course it is. Some people have just forgotten to talk about the budget, full stop, and that is really disappointing because the meeting's been hijacked.
It was hijacked. Now, the reason that we know that there's no real democracy in the political groups.
How can there be when you're getting paid off the administration? The leader of the SNP groups gets an additional £10,000 off him.
For everyone who was watching, they will have seen what kind of leadership
that exists within the
SNP
is
taken in that SNP group, because unilaterally, the leader of that group, Tracy Carragher, without any consultation with her group, decided that they were not going to be voting to save the Aquatec.
Surely not, Gerry. Surely not. Surely it's repackaged.
I was waiting for Anne Thomas to stand up and say, aye, that will be right, Tracy. Nothing.
She didn't.
I was waiting on the same coming
David
from and Fiona Fotheringham in that area.
Now she's quick to profess how she always used to work in the Aquatec. She knows the Aquatec.
Get that pool brought back, and she's a big proponent of
and none of them
swimming.
are speaking up.
Not a
My
word.
goodness.
Not a word.
But that leads me nicely on to the next point that I want to make in regards to leadership. Now, when they set out their budget paper, I think we got roughly about an hour or something to see it.
Half an hour.
Was it half an hour?
Half an hour.
To just glance through it, and that was 2 budgets, highly complex information.
We'll put it up because it's on the website, but I do need to, not to hog it too much, but I do need, it seems as if there's been some changes to the North Lanarkshire Council website.
All right.
And it's not particularly clear for me, so that, see the heading for meetings and stuff like that, that's changed.
Oh, has it?
So if you want to go, if you want to go around and get to the meetings, agendas, the Mars, you've got to go via this new, what appears to me to be a new.
Listen, just let's just put a link up and let people.
We'll put the link up. We'll put the link up.
But I think it's important to come back to this idea of SNP leadership. And I put a post up earlier, or somebody put a post up earlier in regards to, is the SNP relevant anymore in North Lanarkshire, Gerry, right? And in that post you look at it and you have to ask yourself, the question is, are the SNP relevant as an opposition anymore? Because like you says, there was clearly about 8 people involved in that budget. Everybody else sat in their hands and remained quiet. Yeah. Nobody was prepared to argue about the budget setting process. SNP was quite happy to get dragged into a whole Scottish Government thing. Labour was quite happy to draw them into the idea of losing the administration. But the point I would make is under Carragher's speech, after she seconded the motion for the budget paper, when she said this, we were all elected in this chamber on a party mandate.
Before I close, Provost, I want to reflect briefly on how we make decisions in this chamber. The SNP won the most seats in the council in 2022. We lost the administration, not because voters changed their minds, but because political allegiances inside this chamber changed after the election. It should always be remembered that with the exception of 2 councillors in this chamber, we were all elected because we represented a party mandate. That's the reason that people exercise their democratic right and cast their vote for us. And I believe that voters expect and deserve consistency and integrity from those that they elect.
And it was like trying to say that those who have left the SNP need to fall in line and support this budget. Yeah. Now, the irony of this is, and again the gaslighting and the madness that exists within the heads of some individuals within that SNP group, I think it's really important that we clarify the reasons and why we left.
That's why we're here.
It wasn't a political decision for us. We never left because our political allegiance changed.
No,
that's not. The morality stepped in and made sure that we could not support a political group that was, in my opinion, at that point, making sure that there was certain individuals being protected within the political framework.
Yeah, I think one of the statements that was made by Tracy Carragher was that the reason for it was that political allegiances changed.
Yeah, my political allegiance didn't change.
So that's not the case. No. Political allegiances did not change. That was a consequence of what happened.
It's a reinvention. It's a reinvention of the past. It's actually similar to Donald Trump.
But Councillor McPake very smartly identified it and
did you say that loosely?
Articulated it as well as he could. He at least gave Tracy a chance to respond.
Yeah.
You know?
And no response was forthcoming.
Nothing.
So they don't want to talk about the reason why 8 members left the SNP group. They don't want to talk about which led to 2 others leaving and becoming independent. So, and then one being self-resigning, I suppose.
No, I mean, the issue was the leader of the council found himself caught up in allegations that have led to him having to appear in court.
Yeah.
And before anything could change, 2 SNP councillors from Airdrie, Councillor Michael Coyle and his daughter Sophia, crossed the floor.
Jumped the floor.
As a direct consequence of that newspaper article. And then that set in motion a chain of events which led to the leadership of that SNP group, some of them there,
unable
to control a group and unable to retain what they had, and that's why they've diminished from a group, a sizable group that would be sitting possibly with about 34 councillors to they're sitting with 24.
So the interesting point for me here is the fact...
As a measure of success, by the way.
But as I say, it's Trumpian, innit? It's like Tracy Trump. It's a bit bizarre, because ultimately you're doubling down on the fact that these members left, even though it's well publicised the reasoning why we left. Again, it's in various newspaper clippings and everything else, and the reasons why we left and why we changed, and again, support to a colleague and various other things. So to turn around and say political allegiances changed, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, if I'm being honest, because talk about shoot yourself in the foot.
Well, what was lost to them is you can say what you like about us. You can't fault the energy, enthusiasm and desire to do the right thing for constituents. And to be the best councillor that we can be. I know we're not here as councillors, we're here as private citizens.
That, that potentially,
but all of that energy, all of that knowledge, all of that ability to communicate in the chamber is lost to the SNP group.
Well, and that's because it's a whinging session, I think. Now, I think if you listen back to that, so there's a couple of points that I'll highlight now. If you listen back to the full budget meeting, right? Take aside your contribution to this and basically hijacking or stealing the show in relation to making sure the Aquatec was front and centre. But the point that I would raise is you submit your amendment. That amendment, there is complete disdain coming for the SNP benches at the fact that it was even consideration that your amendment could get put in there, and it was questioning and various how's that amendment happening like this and blah 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 blah, right?
It was ridiculous.
Their prerogative, however, it's absolutely fanciful, because ultimately any member can propose any motion from the floor. That's the way it works. Now,
on budget day,
Labour's made sure it doesn't work on any other day. But as I said again, on budget day it still continues. Now, the issue here is again, rather than sitting there and wanting to moan and throw stones at the Labour group, why not sit and look and go, do you know what, actually, they're proposing something that we've kidded on to everybody we're actually supporting in the first place, because ultimately within that budget paper, it's asking officers to produce a report and bring it back to a policy and strategy committee. Right? So, no part of that budget clarifies, here's £5 million towards the hypothetically £5 million towards the Aquatec. We want to get this reinstated immediately. That's what we're going to choose as part of this budget setting process. Councillor Carragher comes in later on in the committee and tries to declare a point of order so that she sees vindicated in this entire process. Point of order. Can you confirm where this would be? Am I right and correct in thinking it would be Policy and Strategy Committee under the Capital Investment Programme? Right, absolutely. More than likely that would probably be a good place to start. However, the budget is on that day. The money is sitting there within that extra £10 million to reinstate that. That is a political choice. You take that to a Policy and Strategy Committee, officers go away, write a report, everything else you're talking about, the Scottish Parliament elections are over by that point. Potentially you're heading up to summer recess. If that paper even comes back to the next Policy and Strategy meeting, you're way after summer recess. So you're looking at potentially getting into Christmas time or around about winter, and again, that Aquatec is still going to remain closed. It's a fait accompli.
So, you're exactly right. It is a fait accompli. The bigger issue is that in effectively kicking this can, we'll call the Aquatec a can at the minute as far as SNP budget's concerned. This report, we'll get officers to get costings and take a report to policy and strategy.
There's room in this budget for the Aquatec. It specifically mentions it's in here, right? The question is, do you want the Aquatec saved with a 4% increase? Is it 5%? Beg your pardon, 5% increase in the council tax, or with a 7%? That's literally the question.
Right. Guess who has the majority on policy and strategy, Greg? Labour, right. So, is there any possibility at all?
None.
So, it's I don't think the SNP are being honest with the electorate. They're trying to kick this can as far down the road as they can to protect individuals who are running for the Scottish Parliament and who are in.
So the allegations made towards you and David, this was politicking, realpolitik, and yous were playing games, and yous were doing all these different things, but the reality of the situation is there's need to play more games than the SNP.
On this one.
Because ultimately the position here is
about protecting
their gift to actually do that. What did they choose instead, Gerry? What was the key budget highlights out of the SNP budget for you?
Carry on. Carry on.
Well, I'm going to play the bullseye music.
Go for it.
And one, Gerry.
Yeah.
£500,000 to give every employee in North Lanarkshire Council
a holiday.
Day off after the World Cup.
Yeah.
Because again, we know how those comments went with the Labour group in Glasgow.
Yeah, that was so. That it seems to be a theme. That's it. Listen, I'm quite happy for the pubs and all that to be open and all the rest of it. But
no issue.
See if we're closing down leisure facilities and libraries.
£500,000 to give everybody a day off when people are entitled to annual leave anyway. So why not take it as annual leave? Take a day off. But the other point in there is as well, there was £1.2 million for phone pouches. Because again, contentious subject matter. I appreciate that some parents would like the idea of their kids' phones being sort of stopped at the beginning of a school day, put in a pouch and locked in a locker, and then go about their day and they can get it back at the end of the day. So that was going to cost everybody in North Lanarkshire £1.2 million.
Every year, Greg?
For the pleasure.
Every year.
We couldn't save school transport, but we're happy to get your way in a phone pouch for their phone. I don't know if it's me and I'm a traditionalist, but whatever happened to a teacher saying, put that phone away?
Put phone in your bag.
Whatever happened to that?
Yeah.
It's a bit bizarre. So the argument's coming for the SNP group where young people are becoming addicted to handsets and phones and all these kind of things, but again, there is a parental obligation in there for a parent to step in and make sure that their kids have a healthy relationship with technology.
If you come home tonight and I get a report that your phone has been on while you're at school, then there's going to be hell to pay, son or daughter.
1.2, 500,000. There's
1.7 million, Greg.
£1.7 million to start off with, which we could have been put into the Aquatec to say there's 1.7 million right away. Yeah. There you go.
Over 10 years, there's 17 million quid, Greg.
Yes.
That could be spent on that.
And invested in that.
There you go.
Right. Didn't happen.
No.
So ultimately what we had is again a policy.
What's the highlights then?
Paper.
What's the Tell me the highlights.
So the key highlights for me as Gerry is the SNP's approach to the budget setting process, because they were very, very quick to shout about how this is a competent legal budget, which makes a change because a couple of years ago I think it wasn't really in the whole area where the budget. What was the words again?
I think what the Section 95 officer said, it was the least competent
budget. So they're very quick to start shouting about that.
It was the least competent. That's amazing, actually, that there's quite a lot of experienced councillors in there, but to the least competent budget motion brought forward, that's quite an embarrassment.
When the leader was professing about how other members, it was a political realignment or whatever it was, she highlighted two key words for me in her speech, Gerry, about people are expecting, the North Lanarkshire people are expecting consistency and integrity, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal coming from that side of the chamber. Mm-hmm. And then in addition to that as well, the pleading, the begging for a joint budget. I found that rather peculiar, because ultimately, if you look back all the webcast, Gerry, right, and I did it briefly. So it was a couple of things that I did briefly this evening. I looked at how many times the SNP said the Aquatec, which was absolutely loads they kept mentioning the Aquatec. And then they had the audacity to turn around and say this meeting's been hijacked and it's only about one centre, and it's right to be about one facility, but it's only about one facility, but yet they're the ones continuously raising it within their group.
I thought that Tracy was really annoyed and upset that the Aquatec became the issue
That's the issue
of the day. She wanted something else. She was prepared for something else. For me, most important thing for me is the Aquatec's in my ward.
Of course.
It was the jewel in the crown of the leisure facilities within North Lanarkshire Council, and it's been allowed to fall to rack and ruin.
Yeah.
And it's been disinvested in over a long period of time. And you can go back to Policy and Strategy Committee or Council, I can't remember which one it was, but Jim Logue made it absolutely clear that we will disinvest in services in order to pay for other things, and those other things are vanity projects like hubs.
Michael McPake's comments,
the only show in town,
when he was I found it hilarious because I didn't mean to come in on this, but it was something else that caught my attention.
I need to read this to you when you're done, don't let me forget.
But McPake's comments was Greg Lennon's finally supported the Labour budget. Hallelujah.
Greg Lennon supports the Labour budget. Hallelujah, thank God for that. But in doing so, he wants to support the £10 million going elsewhere, cutting stuff from his own ward.
Yeah, hallelujah. Right, I don't recall ever saying that.
I don't recall you saying that.
I don't recall that. But anyway,
I think I sent you a message to say you better go on that.
And then the next thing, he's taken away, because we were removing the 10 million, he's taken away investment in his own ward area. Now, it's part of their budget settlement process. This is an example of this, by the way, and I'll gladly stand in my ward area and be challenged and be corrected by anybody that lives in this area. But Glenboig is mentioned in there for a new community hub. Now, Glenboig has 2 primary schools already there, and it has a fantastic organisation in Glenboig who operate as a voluntary organisation and operate Glenboig Community Centre, which is in there, which had 1.2 million or 1.4 million pound invested in it. Yep. Now, 2 individuals run that organisation. They do a tremendous amount of work. I'm talking about for wee kids all the way to adults. They run a post office. They do all these different things, but yet we're putting a community hub in the space of under a mile next to them, and the expectation is there's not going to be competition coming for the council in relation to Glenboig Neighbourhood House. It's a bit bizarre.
Do you know that's for you? It's bizarre.
Well, I've got other areas that need investment.
Without doubt. Well, we'll go back to my area, right? So I could have had £10 million for the Aquatec, right? And what I have now is something I've asked for years. When the pitch strategy kicked off, Taylor High School's football park is a second generation Astro, and that's going to be upgraded, right? So that's going to cost £230,000 or something like that, £250,000 ballpark, round about that, right? You and I know that game inside out.
Yeah.
That is paid for within about 5 years.
Yep.
That starts to become an income generator, a profitable.
Yep.
So don't tell me that that's not a spend to save, that money could easily over the years have come from our reserves.
But
for example,
I'm going to come back to a point I've raised on this show before.
So, but the point I want to make is I lose out on £250,000 up front that would have generated money in favour of
Aquatec.
So it's a no-brainer for me.
The issue that I see, Gerry, right, and again, no doubt, quite rightly so as well in some cases, the argument I've been making for the last couple of years is the idea of this SIF money, Community Investment Fund money. Michael McPake took a right hard stab at the SNP group. What are you going to take away the money for, and all this kind of nonsense, right? But here's the reality. At present, it's 2% council tax. So when we raise council tax, 2% of that overall figure comes in and it's invested back into what they say.
By the way, it's close to, it's about 1.9 million for each percentage point. So it's close.
Exactly.
It's close to £4 million pounds this year.
Right. So the issue here is again with that 2% is then basically borrow as much money as you can on the back of that to build community hubs and these new community town hubs or whatever other thing. Why not take that 2% and put that into the community board structure and allow communities to see how that would be invested? So if you want speed bumps at the bottom of your road, if you want a new play park, if you want all these different other things, that you want to save the Aquatec, you want to invest in your local leisure facilities, then invest in your local leisure facilities. Once that investment's made, you don't need to come back to it. So why not have that £4 million split up between the 9?
I'll tell you why.
Why?
I was reading an article today, I'll need to cite at some point probably which one it was, but it was an online article, and it was about, I was looking at the hubs, and I was looking at the Community Investment Fund, and I was looking to see where else it works, right? And these hubs are often criticised as vanity projects, and these town visions as vanity projects, because most people just want their
legacy projects.
They want their legacy projects. So these legacy projects are either the creation of the officer class, or the leader of the organisation. Now,
what do you think it derived from? What do you think? Because I've never heard a councillor say, I came up with this idea for community hub investment.
Well, there's actually some stuff going back to 2018 when our new chief exec took over, where that vision became alive, if you like.
One singer, one song.
And that seems to be the genesis of that particular project. So people and place and all of these.
Take that money, invest it in your local areas, give your community boards, who's made up of local groups and local representatives, the power to decide how money should be spent in their local area. I don't see anything wrong with that.
I agree.
So, SNP's budget, they wanted to cut the 2% and get into 1%. But yet there's no argument coming forward that we support the town hubs, we support the community hub vision. That's fantastic. But again, surely you'd want to see investment going directly into your local ward area to save the facilities that you already have before they're taken away. I just find it bizarre.
For me, I would much rather see £4 million over a longer period of time used as investment and maintenance. If we have infrastructure
rather than debt creation.
Well, without doubt. I mean, I suppose what local authorities don't want to do is create anything that has a revenue impact. But I'm afraid you can't do that. That's just the nature of public service provision is going to have a revenue element to it. So I understand that tough decisions have to be made, but if those decisions are that we surrender these vanity projects, these legacy projects, where I'll be remembered because I was the guy or the gal who dreamt this up and delivered it. Why not just invest in what we have? We've actually got some really good services. Like where I live in Bellshill, Matt Busby Centre's here. That's a brilliant centre. Brilliant for galas. There's gyms in it. There's saunas in it. There's football parks at the back of it. Just invest in it. Replace the plant. Take care of the pool. Do the same at John Smith. Do the same at Kilsyth. Do the same at the Aquatec. Use that 10 million that David Crichton and I identified to invest in that, and then over a period of time get it back up to the position where it was the jewel in the crown. And what Jim Logue disgracefully made clear was that it's no jewel. It's no jewel. Nor is it ever going to be.
It was a weird contribution for Councillor Ann Thomas and Gerry. I didn't really quite understand what was happening. So first of all,
she was into these jelly babies.
She was a copper. She stays in Motherwell. She's lived in Motherwell for a number. I thought she was a transport police officer, but she's a copper. She lives in Motherwell.
It was transport police.
It was transport police, wasn't it?
Complete lies. Were you even in the room, or were you too busy eating your jelly babies?
She lives in Motherwell. She travels to South Lanarkshire. Am I right in saying this? Because I did switch off. I was eating jelly babies at the time. But she travels to South Lanarkshire for entertainment.
So
instead, did you pick any of this up? I found it rather bizarre.
I think what she'd given an example of a North Lanarkshire group who, because there was no facilities in and around the Motherwell area.
Well, surely you'd have been the one fighting to keep Aquatec open.
Had to go to Hampton.
Right.
For that. So
Was this a panel or something? Was it?
Can't remember. I need to listen back. But and she was talking about the fact when she comes in from Hamilton into Motherwell, the sign is directing you away if you want to enjoy, theatre or shows or whatever, because there's no venue now. In Motherwell, with the concert hall being closed, that you're redirected to.
So that led to comments coming from Councillor Costello, and then for Councillor Costello's comments to be called lies, which was rather bold claim in a chamber of politicians. That's a bit bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, we've got there's venues throughout Motherwell, Bellsill and other areas that could well be used and utilised for that kind of event. Maybe not the massive events, but I know that Cultural Centre, for example, in Bellsill has been used by a good friend of mine, Paul Quinn, who's managed to get some brilliant guests to come in, singer Norman Blake, Teenage Fan Club.
Your big named rapper.
Yeah, what was the name of guy that used to sing with Love and Money, James Grant, playing at the Cultural Centre and other wee venues in Bellsill in and around that. Let's utilise them. Use the Aquatec for that.
Why not?
Brilliant town centre location, but build something onto that building that can be used for all sorts of leisure activities.
The other thing that I thought was striking and noticeable about the budget setting process this year's, the Tories never put anything forward, Gerry, so we didn't even have to go through the pantomime of the Tories supporting a Labour budget. Why do you think the Tories never put forward a budget?
It's quite funny, right? I listened to one of them. So Elaine voted with us, with David and I. She voted Lorraine Nolan. She voted for our budget motion, the budget motion that David and I put in our other life when we're not here as private citizens, sort of thing. And Sandy Watson voted for the Labour motion, I think, and Nathan abstained. Nathan Wilson abstained. I don't know about Adam Curry.
So it shows they're all different within that.
So I think it was we have to show that we're paddling our own canoe. I think they are paddling their own canoe.
You think so?
I do.
No, I don't.
I think they need to find they need to find their own voice coming up to this election because they find themselves with pretty much nothing.
Well, they're not electable. I think the problem that they've got in North Lanarkshire as well is they've been there to prop up and support the administration for that long. That they're not even a credible opposition. It's just a case that they've been quite happy to take the 2 or 3 paid positions offered to them by the Labour group, and that's coming back to bite them now. It'll be interesting to see the next council election how it all pans out.
I think we're going to see reform
100%
involved. Don't know what the numbers will be. I haven't ran any numbers on.
It'll be good to see reform, your party, potentially the Greens, having maybe a foothold in North Lanarkshire.
I saw, and you'll be surprised at this, I saw a poll this morning where the Lib Dems are on 6%, and the Scottish Family Party were on 6% too. So there's a plethora,
a widening Tory vote then,
of kind of traditional, conservatively minded, not necessarily conservative.
Given the fact that
in
the
economic
SNP
terms
potentially in North Lanarkshire is kind of ruined, right? And given the fact that there's no home really for anybody in the Conservative Party potentially to get elected, Nathan might do well. But the reality of the situation, others may struggle, right? And you're lucky if the Tories return 1 or 2. Come the next time, I think it was 10 of them the last council term, and then it got reduced to 5, or was it 8 or something? I can't remember.
5, I think it was 5.
But it got reduced to 5. Given the fact that the SNP group had a former Tory in there, and Councillor Sullivan, who was a Conservative candidate for the Scottish Parliament elections, which is a bit strange.
We can put that up. We've got a good post.
We'll put the video up. That's no problem. But again, if you look at it coming from a Conservative point of view, do you think there's potential within the SNP group to jump ship to a family party or a Lib Dem or even heaven forbid reform, because I know a lot of people have made the allegation that he was an opportunist and jumped into the SNP just to get elected. Perhaps it might be a case that he sees an option within reform or something, do you think?
Who knows? I mean, there may well be other aspects to that. I mean, who knows where people work? I mean, some people work for MSPs or MPs. So
he works for Jim Dornan, didn't he?
So
he's retiring.
And he won't be alone. I mean, there's other individuals in that.
You work for an MSP, don't you?
I do at the moment. But not for long. Not for long. Because she's not standing again, and that's fine. I've got my guitar.
You look deflated.
I've got my guitar. I'm going to go busking, and I'll be fine. I've got the 3 chords down, and all you need 3 chords and a truth, Greg. That's it.
What's an Oasis might be looking for an additional member?
Who knows?
Last point and highlight for me, the very last one. I've kept the best to last. Now, after all this time, Gerry, we've been on the go for the radio going back to the summer last year, I think it is. And it's been quite some time. In fact, it was a year and a half or something we've been going in it. And every time we've always put out a wee ode to our fearless leader, our Kim Jong-Jim. And in addition to that, Gerry, we've sent him loads of emails saying, Jim, come on, and have your point, raise your point, Jim. You'll be treated respectfully. Always. And in line. And we will happily, same as what we offered to Carricker, same as what we offered to that. But I heard, apologies to Councillor Carricker.
Yeah.
But Jim, what happened with Jim was we've sent countless emails and we've did wee funny things on here, an ode to Jim Logue and all these different things to try and attract his attention, to bring him on, Gerry. And at the very end of that full council meeting, our podcast got an acknowledgement.
I've been sitting here thinking, is this a prelude to a podcast? And we'll see it all once again in the next edition of the podcast.
Honestly,
I got an acknowledgement.
I almost fell off my chair.
Wow!
In the house when I was watching it, that our fearless leader, King Jong-Jim, actually does
watch the show. Wow!
And so he knows. He knows what we do. He's obviously a big admirer of the show.
Jim, we're going to get a t-shirt sent out to you if you're listening tonight. A very own exclusive What's the Point t-shirt coming in. Oh, wait, you, Jim and Airdrie.
And again,
I'm sure you'll be happy.
There's an empty chair here.
Always.
And we are desperate to have any of the leaders.
Me stop eating jelly babies.
I'm going to stop eating jelly babies. But yeah, I mean, Tracy Carragher, Jim Logue, Sandy Watson, the chair's there. Just let us know when you want to come on, and Greg and I will treat you with the utmost respect and dignity, as you would expect from 2 fine hosts and co-hosts.
As I say, that was the full council, Gerry. That was the budget.
That was the full and in the end, for the 30th year in a row,
it was a Labour budget.
It was a Labour budget that went through. So,
do you think we'll ever see where? And I get that the SNP was greeting all the way right through. It was actually quite pathetic at some points in relation, because what they were trying to do is present it as the people of North Lanarkshire want its politicians working together. Again, absolutely not. They've no interest in it. We've came for that group. We know for a fact that the majority of the group do not want to work with the Labour group. It's a very entrenched position.
When you in your other life, right? When you were in PCNL, right, Progressive Change, did the SNP ever reach out to you?
Never once.
They never reached out to me.
Never reached out to Paul, was the leader when I stepped down.
They never reached out to Paul, and I think we did reach out to them on a few occasions
at the beginning.
To say, look, there's ways that we
then they kind of went into a world of fantasy trying to basically rewrite history. That was I think that was where we took a kind of bone of contention.
But I think what people need to understand and know is that when they hear things like, we've reached out, they've not reached out to everyone.
No,
just
the Labour group.
They'll have reached out to the Labour
paid
group.
Convenership positions, considering the Tories on the phone for them now. So they're no support their budget. So we'll support your budget.
Who's to say that might not be the case? Who's to say that might not be?
Listen, as I said, I would love to see the love-in between Michael McPake and others in that group with the SNP group. But we're going to stop for a quick break, Gerry. We're going to have a couple of songs, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking about that £1.2 million. I'm interested to hear if people are really, really that supportive of the idea of phone pouches. Is that a good expenditure? Council money, is that something that people want to see? And I get there'll be lots of strong opinion. Were
you surprised to see it?
Was I surprised to see £1.2 million being spent on phone pouches? Yes, I was. Yeah. Because there's no government mandate for it.
No.
So why are you looking to experiment in North Lanarkshire? Now, I get that the SNP administration pals have maybe tried it in other authorities, but when you're talking about a deficit in this council, what was it, 19 million?
It was 19 million.
19 million pounds.
25 next year, 25.
Well, you want to spend £1.3 million or £1.2 million over the next 3 years on phone pouches to try it out. I don't know if that sits easy with me, and I get that there's a lot of concern out there in relation to young people and mobile phone usage.
I understand the concerns, but I genuinely think that members of the public looking
what would you rather? Would you rather having a facility open, back reinstated, where it's got a far potential higher mental health and various other health implications, or do you want to make sure that teachers are doing their jobs and telling ways to put their phones back in their pocket?
Leisure. I'm sure I said this last week. This was a study carried out down south, but it was about the social return on investment. But the social return on investment for these facilities is about 4-1. So for every £1 you spend, you get about 4 back.
Just on another point, there's a couple of points in the record that we have to correct, because last week when we did our show, we made
correction.
No, absolutely, 100%. When we rang, we'll admit it. So basically, last week I think I had said that we were looking at a 10% council tax rise. 10% didn't materialise. It was a 7% council tax budget for Labour, 5% for the SNP. We did obviously look at previous budgets and what the comments in the press were about Jim saying it's going to be a 10% budget each year or 3 years. So we kind of surmised
and that was said that's what was planned for.
Yeah, we didn't see the budget until about half an hour before, so we corrected the record on that. It was 7% and 5% respectively for the SNP group, which never seen the light of day.
I sit corrected.
And in addition to that as well, we were encouraging everybody to get on and watch the webcast, and I think I said 4 o'clock, but it was actually a 2 p.m. start.
It was a 2.
So again, our apologies, but we wouldn't let it be said.
What was the quality like? I've not seen it back yet.
Well, considering the council has invested a considerable sum in relation to this webcast technology, I thought it was quite poor.
Yeah.
I thought it was quite poor. There was lots of bits of it where the audio just cuts out.
All right.
Loads and loads of that, by the way. And in addition to that as well, the time scale for an upload now is like 24 hours. So that the last time when we were talking about the Communities Committee, which I thought was hilarious, when Jim was on his diatribe about where the Aquatec sits, and it went through a Communities Committee and everything else, and then he recognised the fact that we're no on committees and we're not allowed on committees, but his administration clearly intended. There was a recognition of him that sits within that, but as I said again, the standard and the quality of the webcast now is
maybe not
shocking. All because you can get your name on it now. So when you watch it back, as I said, I'm just using it as an example, Councillor Janice Toner, when she was making allegations of lies and all this kind of thing, it just comes up, or jelly babies, it just comes up, Councillor Janice Toner at the bottom of the screen. So your jelly baby's nice.
Lovely.
Alright. Well, anyway, we'll be back after these couple of short songs. We hope you join us, and we'll be live on TikTok Live, and we'll be continuing the debate. £1.2 million for phone cases. Is that something that you would like to have seen, or is it a case that Gerry and I are just so far removed from reality that this is actually a far bigger issue? Again, we would love to hear your thoughts. Let's chat on TikTok. Thank you. gentlemen, welcome back to What's the Point? I'm your host, Greg Lennon, and as always, I'm joined by my good pal, Gerry Brennan. Now, before the break, we heard a wee bit of Dream there. My goodness, talk about a political party ruining one song. You wouldn't guess it, Gerry. You wouldn't guess it.
No, do you know, I was watching Rachel Reeves responding to an SNP MP,
right,
who was rightly lambasting Labour for their performance around energy and the standing charges that we here in Scotland enjoy. Right, I'll just say that. So the most expensive place in the entire UK, we pay the highest standing charges anywhere else in the UK, and we generate more electricity than we use, and the rest of it's sold.
The rest of it's sold to other parts of the UK, and he was lambasting the Chancellor sort of thing, because when Labour came in to power, they told us that we were going to be £300 better off. Yeah, I remember.
With him, right? And in actual fact, we're nearly £500 better off. So see this reduction of 150. We're still. I want my £300. So there's a £650 balance between where we should be and where we are right now.
Well, before the break, we asked the good folk at home. £1.2 million was incorporated into the SNP's budget proposals this year for phone pouches. Is that a reasonable use of money? Is the issue so far and great that Gerry and I just simply don't understand? And I have school-age kids. I'm sure you've got school-age kids. So again, coming back to it,
I've asked the question.
I've asked the question as well. My boy started laughing at me, to be honest. So, £1.2 million
I'm going to say something as well. So I've got brothers and sisters as you do, right? I can put my hand in my heart. I can feel it being.
I was going to say.
Put my hand in my heart and say that I have not spoken to a solitary individual, either within or without politics, who has mentioned phone pouches as something that we should be given real consideration to.
But listen, I'm not saying that it's not a good idea, but is it a good use of £1.2 million? That's the critical question for you on TikTok. What is your thoughts? What's your feelings? Let us know, because ultimately what we're trying to do is ascertain whether or no a budget proposal of that nature, in comparison to what that £1.2 million could have funded. It could have reinstated primary school transport. It could have brought that right back. So these are the questions that I think that the SNP trying to play for headlines, I think is wrong. At least with Labour, and as I highlighted in the Labour in the contribution, my contribution to full council, Labour at least being honest. They're not incorporating anything at all that doesn't sit with their agenda. They're just continuing to do what they do and plodding on. So it's a bit bizarre that you would come up with £1.2 million for phone pouches.
Absolutely. And or they could still go back to their party bosses and just say,
give more money.
Change the statutory limits for travelling to school.
Oh well, sorry, apologies, Gerry, I didn't realise that's where you're going. They could 100% do that tomorrow. 100% do that tomorrow.
There you go. And use the 1.2 million to cover some of that cost.
So again, for those on TikTok, £1.2 million SNP budget proposal, is that a good use spending £1.2 million? Is it a case that phone pouches is such a high up there agenda item, like Councillor Alan Stubbs stipulated, and that David Crichton's so far removed for any sort of reality that it was aghast? I think Alan even read out the word that David used, aghast. That he had to correct that. But anyway, before the break, Gerry, you were about to come out with some information that was breaking this evening in regards to Douglas Alexander and his wee pal Frank.
Well,
what's happening?
Basically, it was a picture of Douglas Alexander, and it was a story that's in the National, and it's about Labour spending vast quantities of credit card money on wine.
Wine?
Yes.
Whoa.
And spending public funds in a way that does not follow the pound.
So Labour's spending on libations as opposed to...
They're spending on libations. They're enjoying the trappings of government. Absolutely.
Okay.
So so some tough questions asked about where the £4,000 was spent. So, and it's the Scottish office, so it's not anything to do with the Scottish Parliament or MSPs. The Scottish office is Westminster in Scotland, and the head bummer in there is one Douglas Alexander with his deputy,
Frank
Peacebox McNally, carrying his Peacebox for his big boss. So I don't know if Frank drinks red or white.
Who knows? I'm sure his London lifestyle will provide it all. Who knows? But anyway, moving on, Gerry. Again, coming back to the idea of the last full council and budget setting. Do you think it was a wise position for the SNP to have the begging bowl out to work in partnership with Labour, considering the fact that in a couple of months' time, everybody's going to have to make sure that they're a own entity at that point and start to prepare their manifestos for the council elections coming in 2017? Because ultimately, when we come back after summer recess, the council election campaigns effectively start.
Well, it's kicked in. I mean, what I would say is politicians need to be pragmatic, right? So I was trying to say this in my other life as a councillor, not the night here as a public citizen sort of thing, but what I was trying to say at council last week was that if I can impact on the most likely budget to go through, if I can have any impact on that and get some good for my ward, that's a pragmatic success rather than tying it to an SNP budget motion that's never going to go through sort of thing. And I think politicians need to be pragmatic during the 5 years that you're a councillor, right? So see, when you become elected, there's probably 3 years where you can work collaboratively with the administration who won, right? So in year 1, 2 and 3, I think by all means...
There's a few of them in there that's been working for time immemorial.
Absolutely, but if you genuinely want to say, right, for the majority of this council term, we will work collaboratively to, get a budget through and a budget that reflects the needs of all our communities, never mind what the parties are doing, sort of thing. But at some point in time, you need to understand that you then need to separate because you have an election to fight and you're going to have to find your own voice to support your own manifesto and the things that you want to get through, because if you win the administration and you don't get your manifesto through, you're going to have to answer for that. So,
do you think the SNP is going to be electable in North Lanarkshire, given the fact that A, the level of scandal that's surrounded them, B, the calamitous decisions that they've made? Now again, the funny thing is the SNP were trying to grandstand and be on their soapbox about this time round about Labour's potential cutting of CLD and all these different things, but what they failed to mention is 2 budgets ago they actually missed a clanger with the NLC 9 workers, so they were as much responsible a job cuts and FTEs as anybody else.
It's all, none of it is coherent. No, it doesn't follow. It doesn't follow a strategy. It's kind of it's reactive. It reacts to situations or stories that somebody reads in the news about pouches for.
Well, I've got an interesting question.
Phones.
I think that full council budget meeting showed me a couple of things. One, the level of, what would you say, how emotive elected members are, because this isn't about having passion or drive to fight for your area. It's about emotional immaturity.
Greg, Louise Murphy is on before us on a Tuesday night, right? So generally when we come in here to set up, Louise is in the foyer, so we'll have a chat. And we chatted about the budget and the budget meeting and how it was like a circus. It was accusing you and I of hijacking and David Croughton and theatrics sort of thing. But she said to me, why is there so few people speaking? So of 77 councillors in there, I mean, you could count
one hand.
Maybe not one hand.
That's one hand.
But in terms of contributions, there was probably no more than 10 people.
But
maybe 15 at a more.
You could go one hand, Gerry, because ultimately what you had was the leader of the council sat silent. He made his contribution at the beginning to propose his budget. Then he comes in and gets the opportunity to sum up at the end after what's classified, and I say this loosely, a debate. There was no debate. It was absolutely bizarre. SNP continued to talk about the Aquatec and then say at the end that you, I and David have hijacked the meeting about the Aquatec, made it about one facility and everything else, but yet they're the very same people that kept talking about the Aquatec. I just find the whole thing absolutely bonkers, and whether or no there's a level of understanding, or is it a case that we're wrong? Maybe it is a case this is actually quite a clever political tool, that you just shout out random things and bluff things and see whether or no it lands.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got good party machinery and you've got good press links, then you're more likely to get your.
What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on local press coverage of the full budget? Because for what I've seen, it's Labour won a 7% council tax increase, and here's what they're investing in. Then the day after, it was SNP budget. And again, within that, this was a bit proposed, but ultimately Labour's budget won. There was no actual proper reporting in with regards to what took place at that budget meeting.
You
would have thought that somebody had prepared the article.
I was actually looking forward to reading when I got home the fallout of that. And what was produced in the press was not necessarily what I thought was. I thought the Aquatec would have been front and centre of that. I thought that would have been front and centre
for all political groups.
Absolutely, I thought that the fallout from that story and the impacts that story has, because that has a big impact on Aisha Khan, who's a Labour councillor.
You've touched on it.
It has a big impact on Anne Thomas, who is an SNP councillor. It has a big impact on me. It has a big impact on Davy Crichton. It has a big impact on Paul Kelly. It has a big impact on Lorraine Nolan
as Motherwell councillors,
and Andrew Duffy Lawson.
But he's suspended at the moment.
He's suspended from the Labour Party.
From the Labour Party
at the moment, for reasons that are still reasonably unclear. Apart from there's questionable messages. Messages, I think.
Was it messages?
Messages, I think it was.
Right, the reason I thought it's quite astute of you to mention Aisha Khan is because she's the MSP candidate for Motherwell. She's standing against Claire
Adamson.
And yet she was the one to come out with a Facebook post to say that all this is nonsense about the Aquatec's closing. Labour's not going to close it, but when she was asked in relation to you going to vote for it, to have a budget put aside to reopen it, it was all rather bizarre that was the position. And we invited her on the show to come on and explain herself. But again, like everybody within the Labour group, they just don't want to stand by anything at all they say.
It's a difficult time for candidates. If I'm going to be charitable again, because you know what I'm like.
You're a very charitable man.
It's difficult for candidates whose party have a fixed position. I mean, I think it's really difficult for Aisha, given what Jim's already said. Jim's already said that this investment is going to take place. It's absolutely clear from that Public Contract Scotland document that went out. I wasn't corrected.
How were you not corrected?
Because what the Chief Executive did was give additionality to what I said. There was no correction. In fact, I corrected Andrew McPherson because he gets dates wrong, but there was no correction from the Chief Exec, and the Chief Exec was accurate in terms of what he said. It wasn't just about the refurbishment of the Masonic Hall. It wasn't just a document about they were looking for consultants to draw up a plan that fitted into the master plan and the town vision. But the very fact that the master plan and the town vision was mentioned alongside a possible proposal that may or may not come in in the future about the demolition of the Aquatec. That doesn't jump out of thin air. That's a bizarre thing to put in, because you could use another arbitrary. Why include the Aquatec in that in the first place?
No, look at you. You were all happy with yourself.
Why include it? Why would that even feature?
I'm not even going to lie. I was eating my jelly babies. I wasn't even listening to you.
No, I wasn't eating my jelly babies. If there was no intention now or in the future, it would not be in it. I'm afraid, and I think any reasonable individual with grey matter that's operating would agree with me.
So coming back to those on TikTok, £1.2 million to spend on phone pouches. Do you agree or disagree? We'd love you just to put your comments in the chat bar. Let us know whether you agree or no, because Gerry and I may be so out of touch that we are just absolutely ridiculous, but no seeing how great an idea this is, because the SNP kept saying this is a really great idea.
Brilliant.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea. It's a great idea. Personally speaking, I can't see it myself. I don't know if £1.2 million is in phone pouches is the best.
But it's 1.2 million every year.
For 3 years.
It's every year.
So 3.6 million over the 3 year.
Aye.
Wow.
Well, continue on over all those other years. 1.2 million
so
every year.
last point I'm going to make before we kind of tie up the show, Gerry, is come the next council elections, and somebody's just highlighted there's a couple of things. One, there's a comment in TikTok about Councillor Carragher's 8th on the regional list for the SNP. How do you think she'll fare? I kind of struggle to understand where you're going to be placed in there, and plus also there's loads still to come. I don't know.
I think that, that there's more news stories to come before any determination is made about individuals on.
I was going to say a person that lost how many members? Something like 10, 11 members.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
the SNP group started off with about 36 or 37, and it's now down to 24. And that's deemed to be a measure of success.
Aye. Why you put that on the regional list? But I don't understand.
No, I mean, I don't understand how they.
Not unless you're repaying loyalty, then that's maybe something for the SNP internally look at. Maybe that is a case of.
Perhaps. I had a look at the list.
The troublemakers.
I can't make Heitner here of
the selections.
Well, certainly not selections that I would have made.
I can't. But anyway, so the other point on here is there's currently, somebody's wrote, and it's Chris that wrote, Chris Dott says that there's currently a petition about the removal of Jim Logue that's circulating online.
I saw that. Yes, I did.
For a change in leadership. Do you think if there's enough people swell to say that they want a change in the leadership of the administration?
Michael McPeak!
Listen, stranger things have happened. Carragher ended up the leader of the SNP group.
No, I think that would be a really interesting, because the key runners and riders in that are definitely Paul Kelly and Heather Brannan McVeigh.
The funny thing to full council was Alan Stubbs correcting and trying to put Paul Kelly on the spot, because Paul Kelly's contribution was to lambast the SNP, and he says it's clear that he's fell out of favour and he no longer gets the budget briefing. The same instance he had a member say, if you want to save the Aquatec, you need to vote our budget. Oh my goodness.
Even although it's not in it.
You've got a clear choice. It's a 5% budget or something else. It's rather bizarre.
I would just remind the readers at home, if they genuinely believe that the SNP budget includes anything to do with spending money or saving the Aquatec, read the budget motion, look at point 15 in it. It says nothing of the sort.
They're a good point. 1.2 million. How many teaching assistants could we get?
I done the sums on that. Could we get?
So we're no mental, Gerry, but I looks at online.
Roughly about £28,000, £29,000 per employee. I'm going to do the sums.
You do the sums now for it, Gerry?
I'm going to do the sums now.
You could have reinstated school transport. We could have done all sorts with 1.2 million, but the question still remains, is Gerry and I's theory on this absolutely ridiculous and we so far removed that we don't have a clue that actually the £1.2 million investment, because that's a real critical issue for you, is actually a great investment coming for your local authority and buying phone pouches for school children. I don't see where that sits. I really don't.
400.
There you go, there, a good one. Too many jelly babies turning into Teletubbies.
Yes.
I agree, 100%. That's why we're going to take them to every full council now.
So we could have between 350 and 400 teaching assistants.
350 to 400 teaching assistants. There you go. £1.2 million would have bought that. 1.2 million would have reinstated school transport for primary kids. And I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff, but more importantly, out of that £10 million it could have potentially saved and gave a reprieve to the Aquatec, because right now as it stands,
no, sorry, that's not true.
I think we need to make a wee tiny announcement tonight as well before we finish up, Gerry. That Gerry and David's pursuance of the Aquatec issue over the last couple of weeks in particular, and obviously your involvement with the local campaign, Gerry, and various other things,
yes,
you have held officers' feet to the fire.
We have.
And one of the key things that you've managed to secure is a written confirmation.
40.
So it's a 40 total.
40 total.
Well, you've managed to secure written confirmation that when the weather changes, the Aquatec will be open. So congratulations to you.
So
and
yeah,
David.
we've had confirmation today in our other lives as elected officials that when the temperature
It will not be reinvested in, because the SNP want a report.
it's not. But
you will have that reopen once the temperature change happens.
That's the commitment. The commitment has been made.
Rather than the investment of about 20 grand to put the heating back on.
No promises of investment of any description. But the reopening, the commitment is there as soon as the temperature is up.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been What's the Point? We hope you've actually got something out of this, because again, we
get some jelly babies.
We're here every week. We're going to eat jelly babies and we're going to enjoy them. But our thanks to everybody that joined us, especially you joining us on TikTok and you listening at home. In addition to that, if you get the opportunity, please give us a wee like on, share on TikTok, YouTube, and all the other podcasty channels that we're on. This really does help push the programme out to residents to make sure that they are fully aware of how their council is being ran.
Into the bargain, if there is anything that you have concerns about or any local issues that you want to raise, then on Facebook just drop us a line.
Yeah,
give us the issue that you need inquiring about, and we will do our level best to get some answers for you.
We will be back next week. Hopefully we'll have a wee guest next week, and we'll actually try for a guest this week, because we're keeping an open chair. Well, because I thought our El Presidente would have been joining us.
We had enough guests today.
Listen, do you know what? We've got one packet of jelly babies left. I think we'll launch that as a wee competition tonight on social media, and we'll send it out to the winner.
For the best question.
For the best question, we'll send it out to the winner. If you want to win this packet of jelly babies, give us a shout on Facebook.
Good prize, Greg.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is What's the Point. Thanks very much for joining us.
I've been sitting here thinking, is this a prelude to a podcast? And we'll see it all once again on the next edition of the podcast.
Can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Richard Sullivan and I'm the Scottish Conservative candidate for the Shettleston Ward on Glasgow City Council.
And what was the key points you've made in today's panel session?
Well, key points can basically be summarised in what a local authority can do for its residents. Instead of having a top-down managerial role, I think local authorities should be making better use of the community groups, community councils, residents groups, and finding out what it is that people actually want, because the council should be delivering for its people and not in the self-interest of political parties. I think that we need to encourage greater representation, better community involvement, and I think that the local authorities need to start delivering for the people, particularly in the times that we live in. Resources are becoming scarce, and we need to ensure that the resources are well spent and that they are actually being spent on what the public want.
Thank you very much.